Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. We've got the latest stories from here at home and across the globe lined up for you tonight. Let's start off with a look at your top stories.
Last opportunity to save the country, says President.
මට තියෙන යුතුකම් සියල්ල විශ්ල කරලා මේ රට එකතු කරගෙන සානුකාම්පිතව මේ සමහර වැරදි මාර්ගයේ ගියා ඉස්සරහට එකතුව මේ ගමනට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
How does the opposition plan on supporting an all-party program?
අපි ඒක රාශී වෙන්නට ඕන. ඒ කියන්නේ හැමතිකම් ගන්න ඕනේ කියන එක නෙවෙයි.
මම නම් මේ ආණ්ඩුවේ කිසිම තනතුරක් ගන්නෙ නැහැ. අපිට ඒ සහයෝගය දෙන්න පුළුවන්කම තිබෙනවා.
What is happening to the Chinese ship? President meets Chinese ambassador. 3 Badulla-bound trains cancelled. Traffic flow along 2 roads limited. Lead throw to reduce gas prices by over 200 rupees.
Onto those stories in detail now. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that this is the final opportunity to rebuild the nation and that everyone must work together in doing so.
The President visited the Rukmale Dharma Vijayaloka temple in Kottava last afternoon. After engaging in religious observances, the President visited the Mahanayaka of the Sri Kalyani Samagri Dharma Mahasangha Sabha, Most Venerable Ittapani Dhammalanka Thero.
It is because of your advice that I was able to come here as the President. If not, I would be coming here as Ranil Wickremesinghe. When I was considering taking up the post of Prime Minister, you told me to take up the post for the sake of the country, leaving aside other factors. That is where this journey started. I believe that if all of us work hard, we will be able to rebuild this country. Because of the requests made by you and other religious leaders, an all-party rule is becoming possible. We have invited every faction. You also have a responsibility to remind them to fulfill their responsibilities. Divisive politics will not harm the government or the opposition. It will lead to collapse of the constitution and democracy. This is the final opportunity left. Every one of us in Parliament must realize that and act accordingly. But first we must do something to alleviate the people from the suffering they are now facing. We must all work for that and ultimately create a better society. I would like to say that I hope to unite the country while also being sympathetic to certain people who went on a wrong path and fulfill all my responsibilities. If we follow this path, we will be able to build a better society in 1 or 2 decades.
You took over the country during a difficult time. You have taken up the responsibility for the future of the nation without any doubts or fears. The Mahasangha and the people of the country are happy that you became president. You are a leader with experience. At a time when everyone is suspicious about the future of the country, you took over the country. At this moment, the Mahasangha is invoking blessings with much hope and happiness. Mr. President, you must first build trust between the government and the people. Lack of trust between the people and the government can cause a serious rift. As a leader, you are bound to protect law and order. Fulfilling that responsibility is not a sin or a crime. You must fulfill the responsibility you are entrusted with. If you can't, you shouldn't take up those positions. Therefore, we invite you to protect the constitution of the country and protect democracy. Allow democratic protests to take place. I urge you to create an environment where everyone can live without fear. Establishing an all-party government is good. If any politician is avoiding this situation, that person must be rejected from society. We believe the people will reject them. All politicians must join an all-party government if they are thinking about the well-being of the country and her future.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadas emphasized that official positions are not necessary to contribute to the development of the country.
The current president invited us to create an all-party program. We all went together and met him. Kabir Hashim, your district leader, gave the best idea at the meeting. What did he say? He said that the country is facing a difficult situation and that we must unite to overcome that. But coming together does not mean accepting ministerial portfolios. We have to be prepared to put aside all the benefits of ministerial appointments and voluntarily support the good work done by the government through the committees in Parliament. government while also criticizing and opposing the government when they are wrong. Honorable Minister Kabir Hashim said this directly to the President. He said that we must unite, but that does not require accepting ministerial portfolios.
Former President and Chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party IsraelPalestine says he will not accept the positions but will extend support to the government.
It can be seen that the incumbent government and especially the new president is making some effort to recover from this situation. We will provide our support to further that cause, but we will not accept any positions under this government. Nevertheless, we will have the ability to provide the necessary support.
Speaking at a media briefing, Samagi Janabalawege parliamentarian Iran Vikramaratne expressed these views on the economic situation in the country.
When debts are given, there are two parties who are responsible. Those who take it are responsible for making good financial decisions. And I must admit that the Sri Lankan government of the past has not made good financial decisions. We have taken these foreign debts and rather than putting it on investments that will give us returns, we have put it on investments that will not give us returns. We have put this money largely in non-tradables and not in tradables is where we should have put it. So we have made mistakes. But I also want to say that those who gave us the debt also had a responsibility to ensure that the debt that was being given is being put to the right place so that it will give us economic and financial returns. We cannot, at the expense of solving one problem, create another problem. We cannot even give a signal that we are going to create a banking crisis in this country. We can't go for solutions which will basically create a banking crisis. A haircut on local debt cannot be entertained. There are other solutions that can be looked at, and we will look at those solutions. And therefore, I would say, let's talk about this in a sensible manner. We will be supporting the government. When the government follows the right policy, they certainly will have our support on economic and financial matters.
What happened to the leopard which was caught in a snare?
The inclement weather conditions continue to prevail across the country. Several railway operations have also been affected due to the inclement weather in certain areas of the country. We'll bring you the details of this and more after this short commercial break. You're watching Primetime News on TV1.
Enjoy a highest return for your investments from LB Finance right now. Earn a highest interest rate of 23% for 8 months fixed deposits. LB Yasaisuru, an unparalleled reward for a trusted deposit.
Welcome back to the news. Just like our forests, rivers and other natural resources, the wild animals in our country are also a vital asset to the nation. It is our duty to protect all of these assets. But reports of wild animals in Sri Lanka being killed as a result of human activity continues to increase. Several such incidents were reported in the island today as well.
Recently, much attention was drawn towards the upcountry leopards residing in areas along tea estates. Many leopard deaths were reported in these areas as a result of human activity. The most recent incident was reported from the Vanaraja area in Hatton. This leopard was a victim to a snare last night. The leopard was caught in a snare set up to hunt wild boar roaming in the Summerhill area of the Vanaraja estate. Seeking protection, the leopard had climbed a tree with the snare attached to itself. After sighting the leopard this morning, the residents of the estate informed the Nallathaniya wildlife officials, who then commenced operations to release the leopard. Although they proceeded to fell the tree and release the leopard succumbed to its injuries a few minutes after it was brought down. The dead leopard is a fully grown male around 5 years of age. The leopard has been trying to release itself from the snare all night, resulting in severe injuries to its lower abdomen. The carcass of the leopard is expected to be handed over to the Randanigala Veterinarian Centre for the post-mortem examination, following the presenting of facts to the Hatton Magistrates Court.
The human-elephant conflict continues to be an issue that people are facing on a daily basis in many parts of the island. While elephants continue to cause both loss of human life and major damage to property, many elephants too have lost their lives.
People of Morakandagama, Anuradhapura have been facing troubles due to elephants encroaching from the Hurulu and Habarana forest reserves. Cultivations that provided a living for many families are at times completely destroyed by elephants overnight. So many of my coconut trees and banana trees were toppled. Authorities must compensate us. They must implement measures that stop the encroachment of elephants. Not a single official did that. 30 to 35-year-old coconut trees are being destroyed. Close to 20 coconut saplings were destroyed. This is our pension. 3 days ago, a corpse of an elephant was found in a plot of land nearby. The elephant had died after coming into contact with an electric fence surrounding a field. Meanwhile, another elephant died in Gannoruwa Hambantota after coming into contact with an unprotected electric fence erected around a house. Wildlife officials say the elephant was at least 15 years old. According to our correspondent, during this year alone, 4 people died in the Hambantota district due to elephant attacks. An elephant calf was spotted roaming in the reserve close to the Parakrama Samudra in Polonnaruwa. Our correspondent said the calf, which is about 5 years old, was seen roaming around several archaeological sites. Shouldn't steps be taken to ensure that this elephant calf is safe? Farmers have been suffering from a myriad of issues for a long time now. First, the fertilizer issue, and now the fuel crisis. Farmers point out that the sale of their harvest remains low. The farmers of Naravila in Mathugama had not received fertilizer on time. We were given urea after they had run out of compost. This is why all these crops are destroyed. We are helpless. We also used compost and liquid fertilizer, but there was no point. The crops eventually died. What we are doing is useless. Just like ministers demanded for compensation, these farmers too say they must be compensated for the damages that they suffered.
Due to the lack of fuel, it has become increasingly difficult to harvest crops in the Uhana and Navidanveli divisions of the Ampara district. About 80,000 acres of land has been cultivated in this area. But now the farmers don't even have fuel to harvest. The crops have ripened and will soon wither if they are not harvested on time. An onion plantation in the Polonnaruwa Bakamuna Sarubima area has been infected with a fungal disease. The plantation that was fertile has now turned barren. Farmers say that this fungus is spreading throughout the area.
Where is the controversial ship from China that is due to dock at the Hambantota port on the 11th of August? The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has sent a communication to China regarding this ship. What will this mean to diplomatic relations between Sri Lanka and China? And what will this also mean to diplomatic relations between Sri Lanka and India? We'll bring you the details after this short commercial break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. Now, there has been a significant increase in the number of crimes that are being reported in the country. We brought to you reports on several shootings that were taking place in the country and also bodies of unidentified individuals washing up on the shore. There were several crimes reported today as well. Let's take a look at the details on our special segment, Crime Watch.
Crime Watch.
One person was stabbed to death inside the Navagamu police station. According to the police, the victim had been stabbed while they were preparing for an inquiry into a complaint. A woman from Ranala and 2 other men had been called to the police station. One man had stabbed and killed the other man who had come for the inquiry. The deceased was a 52-year-old resident of Karavanala. The 42-year-old suspect has been taken into police custody.
Crime Watch.
With the controversy surrounding the arrival of the Chinese high-tech observation vessel continuing to grow, President Ranil Wickremesinghe met with Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Kee Zeng Hong. The meeting was held at the request of the Chinese ambassador. In the meantime, the Foreign Ministry of Sri Lanka confirmed that China has been requested to defer the arrival of the vessel to the Hambantota port.
What are the latest developments regarding the vessel? On the 12th of July, the Foreign Ministry granted clearance for the vessel to dock at the Hambantota port between the 11th and 17th of August, subject to certain conditions. According to the letter sent by the Foreign Ministry to China granting clearance for the ship to enter, China had forwarded a request seeking clearance on the 28th of June. The ship was granted permission to enter the exclusive economic zone of Sri Lanka subject to the government action plan on COVID-19 and under the conditions that the AIS to identify the ship is kept switched on and that no scientific research or survey will be conducted in Sri Lankan waters. The arrival of this Chinese ship became controversial when India voiced its strong objection against the ship's arrival, calling it a Chinese spy ship and citing that it poses a serious threat to India's national security. According to Indian media, the Yuan 5 has an aerial reach of more than 750 kilometers and can snoop on highly sensitive strategic installations on land as well as Indian submarines. In a letter to the Chinese embassy on the 5th of August, the Foreign Ministry requested China to defer the arrival of the Yuan 5 to the Hambantota port. However, as of 2 this afternoon, the Chinese ship continues its course towards the Sea of Sri Lanka. The ship, which was sailing at a slow pace last night, was sailing at a speed of 12 nautical miles per hour towards the Hambantota port today. The ship is currently 1,180 nautical miles away from the Hambantota port. What does the ship's arrival mean to Sri Lanka? According to the available information, the arrival of the high-tech observation vessel to Sri Lankan waters was confirmed a month ago. With India voicing their strong objection against the ship docking at the Hambantota port, sound decisions were taken on these matters from the start. Couldn't we have avoided such a situation? China and India are the 2 most populous nations on the earth. They are also 2 of the most powerful nations in the world today. They represent polar opposite geopolitical blocks. Dealing with China and India isn't as simple as dealing with 2 friends. We cannot accept the request of one and then go back on our word because it upsets the other. We must handle each with extreme care, far-sightedness and experienced diplomacy. Sri Lanka's economy has been in decline exactly due to such short-sighted and unsound decisions. We have already lost control of many strategic national assets as our leaders prioritize their personal gain and political aspirations over the best interests of the country. The Hambantota port, which is also part of this controversial situation, is a classic example. Instead of our strategic geopolitical location being a significant asset to Sri Lanka, the actions of our leaders has resulted in it being a significant threat on our very existence. A good example would be the distress and destruction Ukraine is currently facing. Ukraine, a nation that shares a border with Russia, could have followed a non-aligned policy and kept both NATO and Russia at bay if its leaders had handled matters keeping Ukraine's interests at heart. Instead, today, the country is being torn apart by a terrible war. Ultimately, NATO nations will be fine, Russia will be fine, but the people of Ukraine will suffer. Another looming example is Taiwan. Today we see China flexing its muscles by conducting military drills in response to the US speaker's visit. Ultimately, if sanity doesn't prevail, it's not China or the US that will pay a price, but the Taiwanese people. This is why it is important to remember that this is not just a matter of a Chinese ship. This is a representation of a complex geopolitical quagmire that Sri Lanka must find a way out of in order to avoid becoming embroiled in something that's much bigger than our little island can handle. Our political leaders of all sides would do well to take this matter extremely seriously and prioritize the handling of the Yuan 5 protecting Sri Lanka's interests whilst also respecting the interests of India and China. It is exactly for this reason that Newsfirst has for many years expressed the importance of the Sea of Sri Lanka. What might have sounded like a joke to some then is certainly no joke today. The Sea of Sri Lanka is 500,000 plus square kilometers of ocean that is considered to be our exclusive economic zone. This is an unparalleled resource that we must share with the world, but protect our interests at all times. Being more than 8 times the size of our land mass, it makes Sri Lanka not a pearl in the Indian Ocean, but a significant geopolitical regional power capable of asserting herself as a non-aligned nation. This will not only protect our interests, but also those of our neighbours and friends.
The Australian government has donated fuel to the Sri Lankan Navy and the Sri Lankan Air Force.
The Australian government has donated 450 metric tons of fuel to the Sri Lanka Navy. Navy Commander Vice Admiral Nishantha Ulugetana said that the fuel stock was received as a donation for naval operations. Australia has also provided 27,000 litres of fuel to the Sri Lanka Air Force. Air Force spokesperson Group Captain Dushan Vijayasinghe said that the fuel stock was provided to be used by jets.
Biz Fast.
Litro Gas Lanka Limited said the price of a domestic gas cylinder will be reduced by more than 200 rupees. Its chairman Mudita Piri said that the new price will come into effect from midnight tomorrow. He added that Litro Gas has started making profits after 2.5 years.
School activities will only take place on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday for the week starting from tomorrow. Teachers and Principals Association say a series of protests will take place in the coming weeks, demanding the release of the members of the Aragalaya, including the General Secretary of the Ceylon Teachers Union, Joseph Stalin.
What is Ranil
Wickremesinghe Rajapaksa saying today? He says he requested for them to be produced in court as soon as possible. On the other hand, he is instructing the police to find some way to push him against the wall. Ranil Wickremesinghe Rajapaksa is such a two-faced leader. Teachers and principals brought the 6.9 million to their knees. Joseph Stalin was the person who led this movement. If you are trying to suppress him and bring this Aragalaya under control, that is just a fantasy.
අටවෙනි සඳුදා අඟහරුවාදා දින දෙකේ අපි පාසල්වල ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ පාසල්වල රාජකාරී කරන්නේ කළු පටි බැඳගෙන.
We will be wearing black bands while teaching in schools on Monday and Tuesday. We will be showing our dissent to the government. Teachers and principals of this country are demanding the release of every protester, including Joseph Stalin, who are being held illegally. Don't force us to take to the streets. Do not test our strength. We demand justice for Joseph Stalin.
රඳවාගෙන ඉන්න ජෝසප් ස්ටාලින් සහෝදරයාව වහාම නිදහස් කිරීමේ අපිට අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම සාධාරණයක් අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
Train travel along the upcountry railway route has been restricted to Nawalapitia due to the risk of landslides. The railway department said that they will assess the risk of operating along this railway line tomorrow and decide on the steps to be taken. Meanwhile, many people in the country have been severely affected by the adverse weather.
Heavy rains flooded the road near the intersection of the Naunoya and Radalla along the Nurele-Hatton main road. Flow of traffic was limited to one lane along this road after the part of a road was ruptured. The Naunoya Police and Nurelia District Disaster Management Centre advised motorists to exercise caution when travelling along this road and have informed the drivers to drive carefully. The Maskeliya-Nallathani road has also been temporarily closed down. Officials of the National Building Research Organisation have inspected the road and requested motorists to use alternative routes until the report is finalised. A house in Lidulamaraya, Cambridge Estate was severely damaged after a mound of earth collapsed into the area last night. We have nowhere to go. This will collapse further and we have no help from anyone yet. This is how several estate houses in the Mausakale Vatta in Maskeliya area were destroyed. A house in the Pallegama Navalapitiya was damaged after a mound of earth collapsed onto it due to heavy rains.
Gammad the Sahana Yatra wasted no time in responding to the disaster that was brought about by the sudden change in weather. The Gammad the Sahana Yatra teams were able to reach the residents of Navalapitiya last evening. Essential goods were distributed among people affected in Salem Bridge, Navalapitiya in the Kandy district. The Gammad the Sahana Yatra program also distributed dry rations in the Nuwara district. Essential goods were also distributed to those in need in Vatavala, Dimbulapatana and Lidula.
In a bid to support those worst affected by the economic crisis, the third phase of the Divisavya program to distribute dry rations to families continued in the Colombo district today. The program is supported by LOLC Holdings.
Day 2 of the third phase got underway from the Home Agama Divisional Secretariat today. Essential goods were distributed to low-income families facing serious financial challenges in the Colombo district. Under the program, families facing financial challenges are identified and essential goods are distributed to them.
With over 2 billion YouTube subscribers, the most visited Facebook page, an island-wide network of correspondents with island-wide broadcast capabilities. News First, with the people.
And a look at some news from overseas now. Israel has killed a second top militant from the Palestinian Islamic Jihad group as the death toll continues to rise from airstrikes in Gaza.
Reports that 6 children and several Palestinian Islamic Jihad fighters, including leaders Khalid Mansour and Taysir Jabari, are among the 31 Palestinians reported to have died. An Israeli official said nearly 600 Palestinian rockets and mortars have been fired at Israel since Friday. Israel says it launched the operations due to immediate threat from the PIJ group. According to foreign media, the latest violence is the most serious flare-up between Israel and Gaza since an 11-day conflict in May 2021 left more than 200 Palestinians and dozen Israelis dead. The Israeli military is warning this latest operation, codenamed Breakdawn, could last for a week. Today, Palestinian rockets fired from the Gaza Strip reached Jerusalem for the first time since the 2021 conflict.
New sports news tonight. News First journalist Sensei Judin Sindhujan has been appointed as the media director of the Sri Lanka Karate Do Federation. The event was held today at the Sugadadasa Stadium in Colombo.
Sensei Judin Sindhujan was given the certificate of appointment by the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Karate Do Federation, Shihan PM Kirti Kumara. He will serve as media director from 2021 to 2026.
10 members of Sri Lanka's Commonwealth Games contingent in Birmingham have disappeared in a suspected attempt to remain in Britain. This is according to a foreign media report quoting a top sports official from Sri Lanka. According to the report, the official had said, requesting anonymity, that the 9 athletes and a manager vanished after completing their events. 3 of them had disappeared last week. 160 athletes representing Sri Lanka travelled to Birmingham to participate in the 2022 Commonwealth Games. Moving on in more sports news, Olympic champion Jamaica's Elaine Thompson won the women's 200 meters gold medal at the 2022 Commonwealth Games with a new tournament record.
Elaine Thompson, who also won the 100-meter women's race, finished the 200-meter event in 22.2 seconds.
But she has come all time. I want to be the greatest sprinter of all time.
The 2022 World Junior Athletics Championship ended in Cali, Colombia, with the United States winning a total of 15 medals, including 7 gold medals. The second place in this year's tournament was won by Jamaica and the third place by Ethiopia. 7 Sri Lankan athletes took part in the 2022 World Junior Athletics Championships. However, they were unable to take part in the games due to an issue with air tickets.
That's all the news we've got for you tonight, but stay tuned to TV1 as we will bring you the repeat telecast of the St. Anne's annual church feast from earlier this morning. And also remember to follow details of these stories and more. You can follow us on our social media platforms or log on to our award-winning website www.Newsfirst.lk. I'm Charlotte Benedict for the News First team. Take care and God bless.
புனித சாந்தானால் நாயக்கு யாத்திரைகளை ஒப்புக்கொடுக்கும் சிவம் நமது திருத்தலத்தை நாங்கள் வந்தடையவும் இந்த புனித தலத்திலே நீர் அருளும் சகல ஆன்மீக கொடைகளையும் ஆலோகயான் லபாதென